It's not recording yet, right?
Actually!
My name is Ken Gushi. I am the driver for Toyota Gazoo Racing North America in Formula Drift. I've been competing for about 22 years now. Never missed an event in Formula Drift, and I currently compete in both the US and the Japanese series. My favorite memory at Irwindale Speedway, I actually have quite a few, but the one that stands out the most has to be my 2019 win at Formula Drift. Because obviously it's my home track, I only live about 10 minutes away. Been around Irwindale Speedway ever since I started drifting, more than 20 years ago. But this specific event where I won, I had all my friends there, all my family members, and a bunch of my fans that's been here since day one. And it was the last year that I was driving, last year and last event that I was driving the Gritty Performance Scion Racing FRS. So it was a great send-off, not just for the car, but for myself as well. I was momentarily or temporarily leaving Gritty Performance to kind of start my own team and in a new chassis with Toyota. So yeah, I couldn't hold back my tears when I won that event. And I specifically remember when I went to the winner announcement, my mom came down from the grandstands crying, and I was already tearing up. And as soon as I saw her come down crying, I couldn't just hold back my tears. It just started like bawling out. But yeah, it was just a crazy feeling, you know, just going back to Irwindale since day one. Ever since the first event they held there, way before Formula Drift, back in the Drift Day days. And then coming to that event, winning the event, all those memories kind of just rushed into my head and kind of just got emotional. So that has to be the absolute top memory for me at the Speedway. Yeah, Irwindale definitely played a huge role in creating the scene for drifting in the United States. And for one, it was having, you know, D1 Grand Prix bring their organization from Japan, which was at the time the biggest drifting sanctioning body worldwide. And, you know, they held their driver search there to find potential talent here in the States to compete against their very best. So they would bring in, you know, some of their drivers and their vehicles to compete against the the United States best drivers, or at the time, potential talent. And that meant having, you know, a proper facility or venue to facilitate these events that would, you know, one day become the biggest drifting events in the world, you know. And so what started off in the parking lot at Irwindale then became an event where they would allow us to drive in the infield, and not just the infield, but the actual banking at Irwindale Speedway. And this was something that wasn't even like done in Japan. Obviously, Japan, there aren't many oval tracks, or let alone a single oval track that's dedicated to a NASCAR style racing facility. So even to the Japanese drivers, I remember speaking to them and hearing that it was intimidating for them to drive on the bank for the first time, and having concrete walls on both ends. So there were really no rooms. There were really no room for any sort of mistake. But then it's just, you know, it just became, you know, okay, so how do we become better than these Japanese drivers? I mean, I'm Japanese, but I was representing the United States at the time. And then we all thought, like, okay, so how do we beat these guys? Like, how do we get to their level? I mean, their cars are way crazier than ours. We just have, you know, stock engines, tiny wheels, tiny tires, stock angle. And so how do we compete? And then came, you know, all these, you know, the influx of brands, the companies, Yokohama Tire, Rotora, Falcon, Bomax at the time, Blitz U.S.A., HKS at the time was here in the States. And they all wanted a piece of what was coming. So they started to approach us US drivers and said, hey, like, we want you to be a part of our team. We want you to represent our brand. here's a brake kit, here's a turbo kit, here's a body kit. Body shops were helping us get our cars fitted with this new aero. And one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden we have these 400 or 500 horsepower, purpose-built drift cars that are now capable to hang with the Japanese guys. So after the driver search happened, then came U.S.A. versus Japan. And I think it was that event which really sparked the media's interest in, this whole new genre of motorsports. Super Street, Motor Trend, Import Tuner, all these old school JDM or sports compact car magazines became very interested in drifting and started to document what was going on in the United States. And a lot of people at the same time were very skeptical as well. Like, okay, this drifting thing is just a fad. It's not going to last. Give it 2 or 3 years, then it's going to go away. And that's kind of what happened to, import car drag racing. Was like it was like really popular, and all of a sudden it just died. So a lot of them were saying like it's going to be the same thing. It's just a repetitive cycle. Drifting's going to come and it's going to go, and we'll never hear about it again. But then I think social media came, and people started to really see like, oh wow, like they're drifting the bank at Irwindale. Like this is crazy. And it kind of went worldwide, right? Drifting went worldwide, not just the US or Japan. It kind of went overseas to Europe, other parts of Asia. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And a lot of the overseas drivers saw what was happening at Irwindale Speedway, and they wanted to drive the House of Drift. And I think it just became an iconic venue to the world of drifting. Obviously, Formula Drift was one of them, the U1 Grand Prix, and now we got other drivers from the European Drift Series that are making their way into Formula Drift just to drive Irwindale Speedway. In fact, 2 years ago, there's a Latvian driver, Kristaps Blush. He's a Latvian drift champion. Came to the States to compete in Formula Drift, only to get the chance to drive at Irwindale Speedway. He honestly didn't care about any of the other rounds, didn't care about Long Beach. He won Atlanta, but didn't care about it. His dream was just to drive Irwindale Speedway. So I've heard many stories that are similar to his. Even Hiro Minowa, the 14-year-old drift legend right now, he's a son of a good friend of ours, Shinji Minowa. In fact, his mom, or Hiro's mom, Masayo, also drives and competes currently. So it's a family of drifting, but Hiro always wanted to drift Irwindale. Right? His dad also wanted to drift Irwindale. But just to drive Irwindale Speedway, Hiro and his family, prepped him a simulator, drove Irwindale Speedway many times, practiced, went through the ranks in Formula Drift Japan, and made his way to compete in the United States just to compete at Irwindale. So when I hear these stories, I'm like thinking like, yeah, I've been competing at Irwindale Speedway since day one, never missed an event at Irwindale. And it kind of just went numb in me, right? I always thought like it was going to be here in my backyard. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be the last event, which was like 5 years ago. It's going to be the last Irwindale Speedway. Like, oh, okay, that's kind of sad. But then it didn't happen. Like the next year, like, oh, like, yeah, it's here. But this time for real, it's going to be the last Irwindale Speedway. It never happened, right? And then the following year, no, they really bought investors. Like they brought on board investors. They bought the facility. They're going to tear it down next year. So this is really going to be the last one. And then COVID happened. And it was still there. Like, okay, well, COVID happened. It slowed things down. So maybe another couple of years we'll have Irwindale Speedway. So at that point, I'm like, man, Irwindale's not going to go away. It's going to be here forever. Like, whatever. Tell me whatever you want. They're not going to build anything here. They're not going to tear it down. It's going to be here. And then come 2024, this year, Irwindale Speedway. We were at Formula Drift. First day, I was setting up my trailer, putting up the awning, getting my car ready. And then Andy Luck, the director at Formula Drift, pulls me aside. He doesn't look too happy. He's like, hey, Ken, come here. All of you guys, come here. I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't look too happy. Like, I don't know what he's going to say. Did I get in trouble? Did I do something wrong? He pulls me to his golf truck. He's like, okay, don't tell anyone yet, but I want you guys to enjoy this event. I'm like, okay. I mean, I always enjoy Formula Drift, but what's up? He's like, this is officially the last Irwindale. I'm like, stop it. You know, like, you told me that last year, 2 years ago. Every year you guys tell me the same thing. He's like, no, for real. Like, this is the last Irwindale Speedway. They're going to tear this place down in December. There's a couple more events after this event, but that's it. Like, it's officially done. I'm like, oh. And at the time, it didn't really hit me yet. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. I got other things going on right now. I got to set up my trailer. Got to prep my car. So, okay, that's good to know. I'll try to enjoy it. But, yeah. And then he went off to tell other drivers. After Formula Drift, they made the official announcement, official press release saying that, you know, Irwindale Speedway is officially closing. And that's kind of when it hit me. You know, it's like, wow, it really was my last time driving at Irwindale Speedway. And at that moment, I started to regret not really taking in the moment when I was driving at Irwindale this past time, or the last time. And I guess it's official now. It's pretty much the place that's groomed me to the driver that I am today, you know, starting from the early days of Drift Day, and then U.S., the driver search, D1 driver search, D1 U.S. versus Japan, and the 22 years of Formula Drift that I've competed there is just gonna be no more. So it's definitely making me very emotional, but, you know, I'll hold on to those memories forever and one day tell the next generation of drivers what a special place Irwindale Speedway was.
Talk about your love for walls.
Yeah.
And how Irwindale groomed that.
Yeah. So I love walls, like you said. And Irwindale has a ton of them. Has walls in every corner of the eye. And I remember one specific event. I just don't recall what event it was, but it was still when my S13 coupe was champagne. And I was just practicing how to get close to the wall and staying at the wall for a long duration of time. And for the longest time, I would try to flick it in and I'd come up way too short. I was like, man, like, what's going on? Like, why do I keep thinking like, okay, this is it? And I come up like 30 feet too short, right? And my dad was like, you know what? F it. Just go for it. If you crash it, I'll fix it for you. I'm like, okay. All right. F it. So then I like came in second gear, clutch kicked towards the wall and just like held it in for like 2 seconds longer. I'm like, whatever. Clutch kick again, transition, boom, right on the wall. I didn't smash it hard. I just tapped it, barely tapped it, grazed it, and kept going. And at that moment, it just clicked. I was like, oh, okay. And then after that, I just kept doing the same run over and over and over again until I got comfortable. And yeah, that's kind of when like my love of walls really sparked. It was just something so thrilling, you know, so risky, so dangerous. And we were only going like, 30 miles an hour at the time in second gear. But it was just such a new sensation, like a new thrill for me, right? Learning to drift and like drifting for the first time was one thing, but like drifting towards a wall and like staying at the wall was just a whole like mind-blowing experience. It was just thrilling and I just felt cool. Like I felt really cool, like, oh my God, like none of you guys are doing this, but I did it. I'm gonna keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So it was just cool. Like I just loved looking like something bad was about to happen and just pulling through it. And then came the driver search and then came D1 US versus Japan. Now the first US versus Japan event was when I was sponsored by Rotora. I think it was Falcon at the time. Falcon, Blitz. So my car was done up, looking really clean, Bomix Aero Kit, GT Wing. And during qualifying, I tried to get really close to the wall because none of the guys were doing it. So I threw it in really hard, ended up spinning out before the wall and backed it in like really hard. So my trunk was like in the air, my whole rear end was in the air, and it was honestly very embarrassing. Like I felt very embarrassed. Like I had to drive ashamed back to the pits, and my dad was looking at me like, "It's all right. You pushed it. You did great." I was like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna get mad at me," but no, he was like actually like very ecstatic that I just went for it. And so that was my very first like bad crash, and it wasn't even that bad to today's standards, but from that moment I just started to like pick up like, okay, like I started to use my brain, like what did I do wrong, like what do I need to like fix, what do I need to improve. And yeah, sorry, I kind of like drifted away from the main story, but my love of walls has been there since. I still love walls. But now everyone and their mom can do it. Like it's kind of like the norm now, like getting to the wall instantly and just holding on that duration next to the wall. And I think, like I used to like getting to the wall, like banging it and like skimming it through, but kind of feel bad for the car now and the guys that build it and the guys that work on it for me, aka me. So I stopped being so abusive to the car. Like I'll get to the wall, but like back off a little bit. And, yeah. I definitely have Irwindale to thank for that. If it wasn't for Irwindale, I would have never found that love of walls. And it was definitely the best place to hone that skill of, you know, wall glazing or whatever you want to call it, wall hugging, wall kissing. Irwindale Speedway is obviously an oval, and drifting an oval, at first it feels very weird, right? It's not normal. Like in flat land, you kind of predict the motion and movement of the car. At Irwindale, you kind of have to force the movement of the car, and instead of reacting to it, you're basically like forcing the car to do what you want it to do instead of reacting to what the car is doing. And the reason why I say that is because there's a banking, obviously on an oval, and the moment you let off the throttle, your car's going to either shoot upwards into the wall or go down lower on the line into the infield of the bank. But the judges, or the judging criteria, they require us to maintain a high line on the banking right next to the wall. Now, to keep the car in that position requires a lot of throttle commitment, because right by the wall, with the amount of tire grip we have nowadays, the moment you let off, your front tires are gripping up and you're going head first into that wall. Secondly, things happen so fast at the Irwindale Speedway banking. Initiate, or not even before initiation, you start at the start gate, go through the chicane, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. The next thing you know, you're already at the wall. You're like, oh, it's like already here. And the amount of power we have now with the tire grip, 1,000 horsepower, 305s, you can just imagine how fast things come to you. So when we do our first early morning track walk, it seems like a long distance from the start line to the initiation zone. But then in the car, it's like boom, 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 and you're at the wall. So you have to really react really fast and really get the car to do what you want it to do, like almost immediately, without like hesitation or without doubting yourself, right? I think doubt is what causes a lot of accidents, and hesitation causes a lot of accidents and crashes and mistakes. Now compare that to like flatland drifting. Like flatland drifting, like if you throw it in and you release throttle, the car will, for the most part, float in the same direction, and it's easier to predict. So there's a lot of room and a lot of time to make corrections or adjustments. But on a banked course, and it's interesting, I'll get to it after comparing it to the Japanese tracks, but on a banked course, there's really no time to hesitate or doubt yourself. Like, you kind of just have to go for it. So I compete in the Formula Japan series too, and I talk to a lot of them, or they ask me a lot of questions like, how is it competing in tracks that are just surrounded by walls everywhere? Right? Irwindale is basically a walled track. Long Beach is a walled track. There's walls everywhere. In the Japanese series, they don't have that. It's pretty much all wide open, except for a few, like Okuibuki, which is a ski resort, and they hold the track on the run up to the parking lot. So it's very tight but very slow. So it's not that risky. The second wall track up until now was Okayama, and it's just a small portion on the first, second, third outside zone. There's a little walled area, very short span. And then this year, which is a new addition, because they wanted to train the Japanese drivers to get used to walls, they added a walled section at Ebisu circuit. So instead of the traditional like fly in through, like brake hard and accelerate, they now created a entire walled outer zone just to imitate the US driving style. So get into the wall, stay by the wall for a long duration of time. But it's flat. So it's very easy to predict, like, okay, so I'll get to the wall maybe right there. Boom, throttle now, get to the wall, throttle out. It was easy. And I told the president of FD Japan, like, yeah, it's great practice to get proximity to the wall, but it's not banked. Having a walled course and having a walled course on a bank is an entirely different feeling. And it's a feeling that you just have to experience. Like, you have to do it to experience it to know what I'm talking about. Do I think Irwindale Speedway introduced outer zone in drifting? You know what? I never gave any thought to that, but you might be onto something. I do think Irwindale Speedway did shape, or did sort of introduce the outer zone. At the time, they didn't call it an outer zone. They just wanted to see who can get to the wall the earliest. And I think Kazama Yasuyuki was the first one, at least in my memory, to do so in his K Office S15 at D1. I just remember, like, so at that moment, everyone was already drifting the bank. Like, they would start early, but then they would kind of like dive into the lower part, and then they would come back up. In my memory, he was the first one to start drifting high and stay high on the high line from the start of the bank to the end of the bank. And at that moment, we were like, holy f***. Like, that's crazy. Like, how did you even do that? Right? But then from then on, everyone started to do it. Like, everyone started to like practice that and picked it up right away, and everyone started to like stay on the high line. And that's kind of what he introduced outer zone then. Kazama was the one that influenced outer zones and drifting, because it just looked cool. Like, everyone, like, it looked cool drifting for one, but it looked even cooler drifting right next to the wall on the outer line, right next to the wall. But you might be right. Like, before that, we never really even cared about outer zones. It was like, who can drift through the course without spinning out or making mistakes and make it from clip 1 to clip 2. It was like inside clip A, inside clip B. There was never really an outer zone until Irwindale Speedway. So you're right. I think Irwindale Speedway did influence drifting into creating an outer zone. Irwindale fans are definitely unique. In fact, I think fans in every venue are unique. Irwindale fans stand out a lot. Just the energy we see here, the energy we feel at Irwindale Speedway, it being the last round of the season, the finals, the closing event of the year. And it's the event where, the points are coming to a tight chase for the championship. And all the drivers, whether they're in the race to the championship or not, they just want to give it their all. It's the last event of the year. Like, f it all. Just go out there and do your thing. Give it your best. So it's definitely an event that's like really, really high pace, fast pace, like high energy, a lot of tension. Just overall, good vibes from all the drivers, all the fans, and just to close out the season at such an amazing venue is like no other. What I'll miss most about Irwindale is definitely driving it. Driving the Irwindale banking, glazing the wall is, of course, as a driver, what I'll miss most. But I think I'll miss, that energy that I felt while competing in front of tens of thousands of people under the lights, because Irwindale, for Formula Drift, Irwindale was always a night event. So there was just something special about having a night drifting event at Irwindale Speedway under the spotlight in front of a ton of people. But again, at the same time, been said many times that it's the last Irwindale, it's the last Irwindale, and it's actually finally happening. And I think at this point, it's like, just let it rest, you know, let it. R.I.P. Irwindale Speedway. Like, we've had our time, we've had a good run till now. I'd say 25 years going to Irwindale Speedway. I made a lot of memories there, you know, a lot of memories that I'll hold on to for the rest of my time as a driver, and a lot of stories I can tell the next generation of drivers to come. So, yeah, just a lot of things to be thankful for. You know, a lot of friends that I've met there, and now that I call family. A lot of fans that I've met there, and now that I can call friends. And so, yeah, it's sweet. It's not bittersweet. It's not sad. It's just finally can go to rest.
Nice.
So thanks, Irwindale. So every track that I go to, I have an ideal run in my head, right? Like, I visualize what the perfect run would look like, both from the driver's POV and from outside the car and from the judging POV. Like, what makes that run a perfect run? And every track, I have that run for every different venue. So in this case, I would be obviously in my current competition car. It's the Toyota GR86, powered by a 2J, of course, 1,000 horsepower, 305 Kendas. The perfect run at Irwindale Speedway would be where you don't hear any lift of the throttle at all. There's a fat cloud of tire smoke coming from the back tires. You're at full lock right by the wall, maybe glazing it, maybe a millimeter off, but you're just fully committed on the banking, right? Start through the chicane, boom, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, without lifting the throttle, clutch kick into the bank, and you're right on the wall immediately. Without even left foot braking, full lock, full throttle, just banging the rev limiter on the wall, coming off the banking, clutch kick the transition without lifting the throttle, no left foot brake either, maximum angle through the inside clip, and again, clutch kick again, no lift, full throttle into second outer zone, right onto the wall, without hitting it, of course. Glazing the wall, full throttle. Now at this point, you kind of have to use left foot braking just to keep momentum in the throttle, and obviously like precision to the wall. So a little bit of a dab on the left foot brake, but continuing the full throttle commitment. Going from the outer zone 2 to inside clip number 2, and then obviously through the finish line. But I always have that run pictured in my head and I can never pull it off. It's not me, it's the car.
It sounds so easy.
It sounds easy, and when I visualize it, it looks fucking insane.
Yeah.
But
I like
that's
that.
pretty much impossible
I like
to
that.
do.
You've always been, since I've known you, you've always been a stickler to the sound. About
Yes.
the sound.
Yeah.
It's always got to sound good. No matter what you're doing inside the car, it needs to sound good.
Yeah. And clutch kick transitions.
Transitions in a 1,000 horsepower car, that's crazy.
A lot of people tend to flick the entry at Irwindale Speedway because it's safer, right? It's actually safer when you're drifting in one direction and then you transition into the direction that you want to go, because you're already in a sliding motion. Now, if you're in a stuck motion, you're just driving straight, and let's just say you have to commit to one motion initiation. What if the car doesn't kick out? But a flick, you're already kicked out in one direction, and you have the chance to recover in case the first flick doesn't work. You can either drag handbrake or just clutch kick the second way. But a one motion initiation is a little bit riskier, at least I believe. But there's no speed loss because you're just accelerating to that motion. However, a flick, you lose a little bit of forward momentum from the first flick. So you lose pace, right? And that's why I said in my perfect run, I don't do a flick. I'll just go straight into a clutch kick.
Perfect.
So when I started drifting at Irwindale Speedway, I mean, again, we started in the parking lot, so we didn't really need that much horsepower. In fact, the first car that I brought there was a K, bone stock K powered S13 that was just on coilovers and an LSD. So what, maybe 90 horsepower, if anything, 80 horsepower on 195, like 60 14s or whatever I was running at the time. And that was plenty. That was plenty of power to drift through the parking lot at Irwindale. Now, when we made our way from the parking lot to the infield or the banking, that's when we started to discover like, oh, wow, like I'm clutch kicking a lot more than usual just to get the tires to spin, or just to keep the car drifting. And then obviously, the driver surge came, a lot of these events came. And when competition started to happen, like we noticed a gap between the drivers that had a car that was well prepped compared to the drivers that just had a bone stock AE86 or an S13. And so from that moment on, I think drivers started to realize like, okay, we need to update our cars. We need a little bit more power. We need to ditch the K and go to an SR. We need to upgrade the turbo on the SR. Let's just turbocharge the 2J. Some guys even went as far as putting in a, LS or V8 into their FC or whatever you call it. So the movement to more horsepower started to happen. And obviously with more horsepower comes drivetrain problems, right? You snap axles, or your bushings start to wear off faster. So to improve your car, like we're playing catch up now. Okay, so we have more power. Now we need proper suspension. Okay, so we get proper suspension, stronger clutch, and then now our drivetrain brakes, blow transmissions, blow axles. Okay, now we need to update, our transmission. What's stronger than a T50? Oh, FC transmission is stronger. So let's put an FC transmission in a Corolla, or like SR guys are like, okay, so what's the strongest 5-speed out there? Oh, let's just use the S14. S15 one's weak. So we've started to find like different combinations that worked at that power level. Boom, again, more power happens, right? So now we're going from 200 horsepower to 400, 500 horsepower, bigger turbos, nitrous, bigger tires means more stress on the drivetrain. So bigger power obviously comes bigger stress on the drivetrain. So now we're breaking these FC transmissions, the V160, the V160 Getregs that were known to be bulletproof. Now we're breaking Toyota R154s, blowing differentials. Okay, so what's next on the list? Okay, now we can put a Tremec T56. I don't know, something that's bigger, robust. Okay, but that's more expensive. Well, hey, look, there's a cheaper alternative. Well, it's not really cheaper. It's going to cost a little bit more, but in the long run, it's going to be cheaper. Then comes the G-Force GSR transmissions, the NASCAR-style 4-speed dog boxes. So now we have like 600-700 horsepower, 4-speed NASCAR-style transmissions, which cost, at the time, was like $4,000 or $5,000. But what, V160 Getrag was like $6,000-7,000. So a used race transmission was actually cheaper than replacing a V160. It just made sense, right? So then we have like, okay, 700, 800. Now the guys are running, okay, now I have like 295s in the rear. A lot more drivetrain stress. Oh crap, now our stock IS300 or Toyota differential is not holding power now. We need to update the transmission and the differential. So ditch the 4-speed. I'm going to put in a sequential Samsonas. Okay, differential options. Let's just put in a quick change, Bulldog quick change. So quick change is like a 10-inch big differential, and it's a motorsport grade. It's a motorsport grade differential that allows you to change the gear ratios in literally like 3 minutes. So every year we start to see the evolution of the parts that we used, the ECUs, the computers, fuel injection system, nitrous, transmission, drivetrain, axles, drive shafts, engine mounts, bushings. Like everything was pretty much now purpose built for 1,000 horsepower plus competitive drift cars. I think that trend started to slow down maybe about 10 years ago. So at 10 years ago, we already saw like the 1,000 horsepower, quick change rear differential, sequential transmission, Weisfab steering angle, like all that. And that formula hasn't changed since. What's changed now is, okay, now 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 horsepower actually might be too much. We're lighting up the tires on a straightaway and losing pace. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit and try to optimize tire grip. So now drivers and teams are starting to strategize like what's actually the best combination. I think gone are the days of just having the most amount of insane horsepower and the biggest tires. Now we're actually starting to understand like the balance that makes it most efficient and effective into making the cars not only perform good but also last through the season. Because yeah, you can sure throw in like 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 horsepower. If it breaks, like it's over. Like there's no point in having a 1,200 horsepower car making it to the venue only to have it break. So Like a lot of these things really start to like evolutionize a long time ago, but then start to like plateau 10 years ago. And now drivers are finding just different ways to be a little bit more competitive while using, obviously the same equipment that we found the Formula 4 10 years ago. My final thoughts on Irwindale closing is the fact that obviously it is sad. It's kind of where I learned how to drift properly, not on dirt or gravel, but actually on like asphalt. It's the place where I met a lot of my drift friends. It had it not been for Irwindale, I would have never met you guys either. So, well, actually, no, I take that back. I think we would have met one way or another. But it is a place where I met, like guys like you, Taka, Hiro, Moto, all the old school drift guys. And at the time, we had a very tight community, and it was special, And my dad took me to Irwindale all the time, even away from events. And so I had a lot of memories there. But then, they started saying like Irwindale's going to close, Irwindale's going to close. And it was kind of like beating a dead horse, like, okay, just, all right, enough of that. It's not going to close. Like, and now that it's actually closing, it's like, it's actually happening. But I think it was time. That place was pretty run down and tore down. But it's time for Irwindale to go bye-bye. Thank you, Irwindale.